you kind of mentioned it yourself too. You've worked with so many different types of people, and One True Sports is very nostalgic oriented in certain ways. And one of my favorite times was when you worked with the band with Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Sean Waltman. Can you talk about that time period, what you maybe learned from them, and what was kind of that whole dynamic with you guys at that time?
I mean, as far as what I learned, the show's not long enough, man. I got other
Right.
interviews to do, just because all of them are so experienced, and um, it's definitely a part of my career that I won't forget, and I'll be the first to say and admit it to you. I've forgotten three-quarters of the things that I've done, and I think part of that is I have a weird memory for nostalgia and older stuff. Um, and I try not to think or live in the past or the
Mhm.
future. I'm constantly trying to live right now because the past is the past, it's behind us, and the future isn't guaranteed for anybody. So I just enjoy what I'm doing right now. And I can remember kind of like it happens every now and to me where I would kind of pull back and sitting in this room with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Sean Waltman, and we're joking and talking, and we're putting stuff together and like what we're going to do in the segment tonight. And it was almost real. And I mean, it's a joke that I say when I do seminars or if I do meet and greets and stuff, and someone will ask me to sign a picture with those guys in it, or the Kevin Nash and Eric Young action figure set, which is still surreal to me. I'll say, like, I was in the NWO for 6 months. If they could have called it the NWO, they would have. And
Yeah.
but that's what it was. And those guys were older. And the coolest thing for me, it was, I mean, I was probably, other people would have chose to be in the group, but I kind of was in between and was still very, very close to Kev. And I still consider him a very good friend of mine. And he kind of went to Bischoff and said, if we're going to do this, then Eric Young's got to be in it with us because they needed someone to do the heavy lifting, and I was all for it. And yeah, it's a very, very special thing in my career. It wasn't very long, and but I got to work with them all. I wrestled them all, tagged with them all. Got to travel with them a little bit. Traveled with Kev quite a bit actually, and yeah, man, it's surreal. As a kid growing up, and during the Monday Night Wars, and looking around and sitting in a minivan with these three guys, and we're driving and eating at Cracker Barrel, and the coolest part was that they chose me, and I mean, I think there was probably be other people that they would choose first, but those guys were busy in the middle of other things or doing other things. But I was the choice. They all were very complimentary of me and how I worked, and how I carried myself. And so just a massive, massive compliment for me.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? I'm fortunate to work with Kevin on his podcast and stuff like that. And you can tell, like, even just the little stuff that I'm not even thinking about, like when we're talking about Raw or whatever it is, he'll just bring something up. I'll be like, wow, that's crazy. Like, he
Yeah,
just
it's a
knows his
genius,
stuff.
man.
Just a
It's a
genius.
genius.